Welcome back to more FPL content. This will be the best wildcard team for Game Week 19. This will be the final game week where you can use the first wildcard of the season. And once we approach Game Week 20, that's where the second wildcard comes into play. But I wouldn't advise using the second one just yet. But I'll still be posting best wildcard teams in most game weeks, if not all, just to provide the context of fixture swings, maybe the best players to invest in, and how that changes week on week. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, our aim is to get this to 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals. We're so close towards 31,000 subscribers. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships if you want to support the channel even further. There's currently a 20% discount on Patreon, and you can also join the Discord server, FPL League, check out Drafthound, as well as Spotify. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. My squad value is 103.5 million, but just a bit of a disclaimer, the ranks and game week points on the left-hand side are from game week 17. You can see the updated versions in the team selection video and also the deadline stream, so keep your eyes peeled for those pieces of content. I'm going to start off with the two goalkeepers, and instead of the usual Robert Sanchez and Fabianski duo, I'm going for something different in this wildcard edition. Jordan Pickford is the highest scoring goalkeeper in the game this season, and it's not really surprising, but the recent returns have been in difficult fixtures like Man City away, Arsenal away, and Chelsea at home. Pickford has found a way to get a clean sheet or a penalty save, and he has been so consistent in recent weeks. I also wouldn't mind investing in Mykolenko or Ashley Young, who has just returned from suspension, but I think Pickford is a very good choice in goal because Everton keep clean sheets when you least expect them to, so you just start Pickford week in, week out, and you're going to get very healthy returns in most game weeks. There was the 4-0 loss very recently to Man United. That's the only blip we've seen from Everton in recent times. But the backup goalkeeper is slightly different. I'm going to go for Areola at this moment in time, but it could be Fabianski. If he's available for Game Week 19, just stick with Fabianski as your backup choice. Now you might be thinking, what about Dubravka? He's been keeping clean sheet after clean sheet, and Newcastle are one of the most informed teams in the country. Now I certainly wouldn't mind going there, but Nick Pope should be back fairly soon, and that puts me off from Martin Dubravka. Otherwise, he would be an ideal backup goalkeeper for the next month or two, and on current form, you could even start him over Jordan Pickford. I definitely wouldn't go for Fraser Forster, which I said as soon as the Vicario injury happened several weeks ago, but I think the best backup goalkeeper right now would be Martin Dubravka, and that could be a very decent short-term play. But on the wildcard, you want to really tackle the long-term, especially in a position like this where you want some to get options between the sticks. Now, if Fabianski is back for Game Week 19, go for Fabianski. He is the best budget goalkeeper in the game, and when I'm on about budget, I'm talking about 4.3 million or below. But Areola could be a decent replacement for him as well, of course, and that could make a lot of sense. Dubravka has been tremendous recently in terms of FPL output. I was kind of burned by that last season. I was convinced Dubravka would be a great signing for me, and it never really happened. It's a different case this season, though, and Newcastle are looking really strong. Is Trent Alexander-Arnold worth 7.1 million? I think the answer is probably not, but he is one of the most exciting defenders to own. Liverpool are top of the league. They've got that assist threat through their fullbacks, especially Trent Alexander-Arnold from set pieces and open play. He's going to get bonus points from time to time, although not as often as he would have done in recent seasons due to the changes in the bonus points system. And I think Liverpool will keep clean sheets, but they have struggled in recent times through the injury of Konate. I think once he's back, that will really bolster their ranks defensively, and they'll start churning out more defensive output. But Trent is still my favourite Liverpool defender. I think Joe Gomez is a nice shout for the next couple of weeks, but that's very short term. And then you've got Virgil van Dijk as a safe and set and forget option with the goal threat from set pieces. And Liverpool tried something a little bit different. I think their set piece routine did resemble Arsenal's. Speaking of which, I would probably go for Gabriel as well, but there's also Timber, Saliba, and maybe Calafiori, but my favourite is still Gabriel, and you've got Raya in goal, who is another option for you to consider. And that also goes without saying, I think the best goalkeepers in the game include Pickford, Raya, Sanchez, and Sells, and the likes of Alisson and Onana are also right up there in that kind of top 6 list, but Pickford right now looks sensational. Now with Arsenal, you could also double up defensively. I don't think that's a bad play, but their upcoming fixtures are quite tough, and I don't see many clean sheets, at least based on the fixture difficulty. Brentford and Brighton away aren't going to be easy. They are going to face Ipswich Town at home tonight, and we'll see how they get on. But beyond that, I think the fixtures are quite mixed bag for the next couple of months, actually, and the Premier League is so competitive this season, and you could drop points in any given game. But let's complete this defensive line with some cheaper options, and Lewis Hall has been sensational in recent weeks. Every time I think he's not going to get a return, he still ends up doing so, and he gets bonus points in the process. So I think he offers amazing value, much better than Trent right now in terms of what he's offering per million, but at the same time, having both of them is definitely a nice play. And very few FPL managers will have this sort of defensive line with the consistency, the saves potential of Pickford and Dubravka, and also the clean sheets, goals and assist threat of all of these defenders coming up. Speaking of which, Daniel Munoz is very exciting. He had another shot inside the box against Bournemouth, and all of his underlying stats are terrific for a wing-back. He's had 7 big chances this season, and that's only going to increase with Crystal Palace having arguably the best fixtures over the next 6 game weeks, and you've got Southampton at home up next. They've got a new manager, and that could be trickier than expected, but Crystal Palace should still win that game, and Eze returning from injury is going to be a massive boost. Munoz is my favourite way of covering the Eagles defensively, but you've also got Dean Henderson in goal, who has been quietly going about his business, and I started the season with him, and he was quite disappointing for me, but I have to say Crystal Palace are very tough to beat on their day, and they keep a lot of clean sheets, more than you'd expect actually, and Munoz has the goals and assist threat to really make him a viable FPL option. The last choice is going to be Timothy Castagne, who picked up an assist against Chelsea in that 2-1 win. Their first victory at Stamford Bridge in 30 to 40 years is simply outstanding what they did towards the end of that game. I think Robinson is worth the extra millions, but I think Castagne offers great value for the next 8 to 10 weeks whilst Kenny Tete is out through injury. And you can also go for Joachim Andersen, but I think Castagne might offer a little bit more in terms of assist threat. Goal-wise, I think Joachim Andersen will probably score more and get some more bonus points, but he hasn't really shown it in a Fulham shirt this season. But ultimately, this defensive line is very strong. One problem that you could have, though, is by having Dubravka and Lewis Hall, it doesn't allow you to go for Jacob Murphy or Anthony Gordon alongside Isak, who has been sensational in recent weeks. So if you want that Newcastle offensive double-up, be very mindful about your backup goalkeeper. Whilst Dubravka would be the best at this moment in time, he's a very short-term pick, as Nick Pope should be back in several weeks to a month. And there were some positive updates about Fabianski after the Southampton game, which I covered in my Transits video. So maybe instead of Dubravka, you go for either Areola or Fabianski. And at this moment in time, I'd probably just settle with Areola until we get even more updates about the Polish goalkeeper, and then we can make a decision accordingly. So that's my defensive line up until this point. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. This segment shouldn't last very long because Mohamed Salah is pretty much essential at this point in FPL. It's very rare that I dish out that term. Even when Haaland was going ballistic in the first 5 game weeks, he was in essential form, so to speak. He seemed like he was a must-have at that point, but I think with Salah, it's a prolonged period of consistency, double-digit hauls, and a set-and-forget captaincy option. That's 10 game weeks in a row with a return. It's simply staggering, and unless a game is postponed, you've got a storm like Storm Dara, or you've got the Gandhi curse, I think you need like a combination of those factors to tackle Mohamed Salah with his current form. The Christmas tree picture has been posted, but it had no impact upon his return against Leicester City. A 9-pointer there towards the very end of that match. Next up, though, is another midfielder I class as essential or almost to that level, and that's going to be Cole Palmer, who narrowly outscored Mohamed Salah in Game Week 18 with a double-digit haul despite the loss against Fulham, their local rivals. But Cole Palmer offers a lot of consistency too. The most FPL points since Game Week 7 last season when he made his first start in Chelsea colours, and Salah and Palmer are by far the best options in FPL across all positions, although Isak will be giving Palmer a run for his money for second spot. And once Saka returns from injury in a couple of weeks to months' time, he would also enter the conversation. But for now, I think Palmer remains a sensible, logical choice who can be a set-forget option for the rest of the campaign. But if we look at the other midfielders, I don't think there are any particular standouts. Having said that, I would consider at this moment in time Anthony Gordon, because he's shown the consistency in recent weeks, which is reminiscent of last season where he was getting so many double-digit hauls. He was one of my favourite assets in the last campaign, and I started this season with him, and he has been a huge disappointment. He got a double-digit haul against Bournemouth on my bench, and every time I started him, he was playing on the right and not doing anything. But when he plays on the left, he is a different beast entirely, and we saw it through that fantastic goal against Aston Villa within the first 90 seconds of that game. And I think that front three of Jacob Murphy, Isak, and Anthony Gordon works really well in tandem, and their upcoming fixtures are very promising from an attacking perspective. I think clean sheets wise they might struggle, but they just keep on churning out those clean sheets with Martin Dubravka replacing the injured Nick Pope, and they're looking like a really solid unit at this moment in time. I'd also go for a differential punt in Ismaila Sarr, who I talked about last week, and he was disappointing against Bournemouth. I think Eze is another one to consider, but Ismaila Sarr is significantly cheaper, and I think he offers better value right now, and he has a really high ceiling in certain games. He is inconsistent though, and Crystal Palace can be left wanting at times, but I think those fixtures like Southampton and Leicester City are worth targeting, and a differential punt here could really work out for you. A triple up in Crystal Palace might be excessive, but 1 or 2 is the sweet spot, with Daniel Munoz and Ismaila Sarr being my favourite options right now. Mateta up front is another shout, and also Eze, but I would stick with these two for the time being. And to complete this midfield, I'm going for another budget option, and the question lies as to how do we structure our teams, including this position? Do we go for 2 or 3 budget midfielders? My preference would be 2. I think 3 might be a bit excessive, and it could lead to an imbalance and a lack of flexibility in terms of switching between different formations and transfer targets. But then again, if you look at all the options in the midfield like Maddison, Diaz, and also Jota, they're going to be rotation risks, and they can come off the bench and do well, or also give you a double-digit haul from time to time, but you're not going to find that consistency that you would with Palmer, Salah, or Saka. So it might be worth going for Rodgers, Sarr, and then going for somebody like Iwobi, for example. But my preference in this position and at this particular price point would be Morgan Rodgers, and he's by far the best Aston Villa asset in the game. I know Duran was sent off against Newcastle, which opens the window of opportunity for Ollie Watkins again, but I'd rather avoid that entirely unless you're looking for a differential up front, and I think picking your moments between Duran and Watkins can really work well for you. I'd rather stick with the sensible option of Morgan Rodgers, who offers you the consistency of starts, and he offers tremendous value. I know he can be frustrating at times, but you also have to temper your expectations with a budget midfielder. So this completes this position, which is so important in FPL. And with Bruno Fernandes suspended and Saka's injury, it is so crucial to get this right. Despite 3 consecutive blanks, I'm going to go for Chris Wood again. Now, one thing you could say with the squad depth this team has, you might even want to go for Cunha. And if he does get banned very soon, you can just bench him and you don't need to rush to replace him just yet, because you've got 5 really solid midfielders. You could even start a back 4 if Cunha does get suspended. So if you do prefer that, I'd also like to discuss that in the live chats in future streams, or also in this wildcard video in the comments section, and also across all my social media platforms. But I think a safer pick would be Chris Wood, and he's still going to do a decent job. But Nottingham Forest have found a way to win matches without Chris Wood even scoring, which is a positive sign of a strong team. But they'll be hoping that the talismanic figure up front will get back in on the action, because they're going to need him. They've got some tough games on paper. Even Everton away won't be that easy considering their recent form. But Chris Wood for me remains one of the best forwards in FPL. Another forward who's struggling for form in recent times is Nicholas Jackson. He's been quite underwhelming, I have to say that. Since I've signed him, I would have expected more from him and Chelsea, especially in the last 2 game weeks. But I think he's still worth investment, and he just needs to go 1 more game without getting booked, and then the threshold increases from 5 yellow cards to 10, and I just don't want him being banned for Game Week 20, but that is still a possibility. It certainly won't be as bad as Cunha's ban once that comes into place, or at least you'd expect that. The FA have been slacking in recent weeks, but the go-to striker right now is obviously Isak. He has to be in this forward line, even though he faces Man United and Tottenham in the next 2. I mean, to be fair, they're 2 mid-table teams right now, and that could certainly change, but Newcastle are in form, and they're going to be smelling blood in some of these fixtures, and longer term, they've got some even more appealing fixtures on the horizon. So that's my best 50-man squad on the wild card. If you've got even more money available, you might want to go for Cunha over Chris Wood, although that's riskier, and you might end up transferring him out anyway. Wolves have terrible fixtures regardless, so there's a few reasons why you may want to avoid Cunha in terms of investment on the wild card, free transfers, or even if you have the Brazilian, he might be a sell very soon. And in the midfield, you'd be looking at maybe Diogo Jota or Diaz if you want to take a bit of a punt there. James Maddison is still worth it. Off the bench, he can make an impact, just like Jota, and he's going to get goals or assists consistently as long as he stays injury-free. And in the defensive line, you might be looking at another Arsenal or Liverpool defender who offer even better value, especially compared to Trent Alexander-Arnold, and even Levi Colwill at the back, Sanchez in goal, Raya. There are so many options in each position, but let's head over to FPL Team to discuss the starting 11 and the captaincy. There are no doubts between the sticks. I would go for Jordan Pickford at home to Nottingham Forest, who currently sit 3rd in the Premier League table. They might soon be 4th it doesn't really matter at this point. They are one of the best teams in the country. They're solid defensively, and this game could be a low-scoring affair. And that's why Chris Wood is currently on my bench, but I'm not that happy about it. It's very rare that you see Chris Wood blank in 4 or 5 consecutive games, especially this season, so that could be a mistake waiting to happen. I've gone for Trent, Gabriel and Munoz as the back three, with Palmer, Rodgers, Salah, Ismail Assar and Gordon as the midfield 5, and then Jackson and Isak up front. The bench comprises of Areola, which could be Fabianski, Chris Wood, Castagna and Lewis Hall. That's a very solid bench, and that's even bench boostable with the exception of the second choice goalkeeper. And I've got 0.2 million left in the bank roughly, and there's a few things you could change here and there. As mentioned earlier, if you've got even more funds, I think Cunha over Chris Wood is definitely a shout. Now with the captaincy, I'd keep it simple, either Salah or Palmer, but even the likes of Isak, given his form, facing a struggling Man United side with 4 losses out of the last 5 Premier League games, he could be another decent option. Ismail Assar will be very punty, but the fixture is certainly very appealing, and Southampton at home should be targeted in most cases, but I'd probably avoid Ismail Assar for the captaincy personally. I think owning him is already enough of a differential, and I think it'd be a huge risk to put the armband on him because he is fairly inconsistent, and Crystal Palace can also deceive and disappoint you at times, in my opinion. But let me know your thoughts in terms of certain 50-50 calls with the starting 11. Would you go for Chris Wood over Gordon, or maybe bench Morgan Rodgers instead? That is definitely a debate. I don't think Ismail Assar, Salah, Jackson, Isak or Palmer should be in these kind of benching dilemmas, but the rest of them are certainly up in the air. And Castagna is not bad against Bournemouth at home, but the Cherries are also another competitive team, and you could see them scoring or at least creating chances against Fulham. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Let's keep the conversation going as always, and thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this to 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 31,000 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. And there's currently a 20% discount on Patreon. There's also my Discord server, FPL League, Draft Hound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It goes a long way to support my channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Gameweek 19 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.